Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Somebody sent me a 1959 Gibson, and we get to unbox it today. I'm not sure which one it is. The other one is a 60s Gibson. But the story is, these are both consignment guitars, so I thought I would unbox them and do like a mini review of the 59 and just briefly show you that 60s one. So you can check these out on my Reverb page. I'll leave a link in the description. But no, I'm not consigning a 59 first. This is something a little bit different. It's the most affordable 59 Gibson that you can get. But affordable as far as vintage Gibsons go, I mean, we're still talking a couple $1,000s, right? So this whole process just started as an email. He asked me if I do consignments, and yes, I do occasionally do it. My fee for that is $150 plus 10% for me, plus all other shipping and like fees associated with selling on Reverb or eBay or wherever it goes. So not that much cheaper than consigning with a regular store, but hey, at least you get a cool, fun video out of the deal, right? You can always remember your guitar that way. But it looks like I finally got it out. That took forever. But here we go. Which one is in here? It feels pretty light, but both of these guitars will be pretty lightweight. And it's just a aftermarket hard shell case, since this particular model didn't really come with a nice hard case brand new from the factory. Did I pick the right one? Yes, I did. The 59. So this is what is considered a Gibson Melody Maker. The very first version of the Melody Maker, the version that everybody wants, because later versions, they changed the way that this pickup works. So if you have one that's really wide looking, apparently people enjoy the sounds of these and they won't replace them. But later Melody Makers use a thinner one. And I've heard that some people say this sounds more like a P90, whereas the other ones are just kind of like, you know, wimpy single coils. Most people don't love them. So when this opportunity presented itself to document this version of this Melody Maker, it's like, yeah, I definitely want to do that. So I think I had a 1960 before that I got from the Ohio Guitar Show. But these vintage Melody Makers, they're made of the same mahogany as the Bursts were. They got that cool vintage vibe to them. I mean, they've got a dinky little headstock. Ooh, this one's got a headstock repair. I don't remember being told about that. That's going to hurt our resale value here. So hey, that makes this one even more affordable, but that is a very well done repair. And our neck is looking pretty good here. It's a nice chunky feel, honestly. Definitely that 59 profile as you're used to, rounded but not overly fat. But obviously, no maple top on these guys, and they're a little bit thinner, but that's just what makes them fun. You can also find 3/4 size instruments, which apparently have their own unique little following to them. So we'll check this one out on the workbench here in a minute, but let's go ahead and check out the 60s one. Another little fun fact about this situation, when we were talking about doing this consignment, the only other fee associated with that is shipping them to me. And so when I got a call from FedEx going, you've got a package coming from Canada, I was like, what? I didn't realize these were coming in from Canada, so now I have this beautiful $214 bill just for accepting these packages. That's why sometimes international packages can be a pain. You never know if you're going to be charged fees or whatnot. I mean, technically, this shouldn't have been charged anything because they were made in the USA. But since they did some sort of service as far as importing the guitars, that's probably what that's about. If you're just an individual person shipping something internationally, I suggest going with USPS, because they tend to not charge all that stuff. This is kind of an interesting box. There we go. So this one does have one of those old chipboard cases. I don't think this is the original case. I think it's kind of aftermarket for the era. The ones I'm used to seeing from Gibson are more black in color. We should be good to go on this one. So if I remember correctly, this is a 64. Oh wow, this is nice. Alright, so this is a Melody Maker D in the double cut shape. I believe they did the double cut variety from, I think it's like, what, 61 till about 64. And then in 65, they switch over to that beautiful freaky fish shape that I love. I'm not a huge fan of this double cut Melody Maker shape. But if you like double cut guitars, I mean, you're gonna like these things. I guess that's the other interesting thing about these guys, is it's a cheap way to get a Brazilian rosewood fretboard. Because I believe it's around 1965 when Gibson stops doing the Brazilian boards. But this is a really high-end deluxe Melody Maker because you got 2 pickups. Usually these will just have 1 pickup. Sometimes they'll have this trem arm on it, but you don't actually have to use it. That's kind of the nice thing about this setup because that's technically a wrap tail piece. So if you want to remove this, which a lot of people did due to tuning stability issues, you can just take that off. You're going to have 3 holes in it. So if you ever see 3 holes down here in a Melody Maker, now you know why. It's because it had a tremolo system on it. But this one kind of has a line right there, but it almost looks like it's just regular wood grain, or it's a very expert repair. So maybe we'll take a quick look at this guy too, just to make sure everything's what it's supposed to be. But yeah, lots of fun today. Let's go ahead and throw these vintage Gibson Melody Makers on the workbench. Inside the 59 Melody Maker, unfortunately I went through our emails. He did not know about the headstock repair, and he actually talked about how he got kind of taken on Reverb a few different times. Unfortunately, this is another one for him. That really stinks. So once again, this is just a slab of Honduran mahogany. I do not see any seam lines. You just see all this finish checking, but short of stripping off the paint, I don't think we're really going to be able to see. But here's our pickup route. It's kind of an interesting shape, to say the least. But then it steps down and becomes larger. So some people will actually take these and convert them into like the poor man's junior, as they call it. They'll put a P90 pickup in here. Those are a lot of fun. Other people will take this out and route it for a neck pickup, which, I mean, you can do, but you're going to destroy a lot of wood in the process. But that's the fun thing about these vintage Melody Makers. They're not too expensive, so you can experiment with them and still have vintage wood. Now, thankfully, the electronics, they look okay to me. You still got the original bumblebee cap, and the pots have those traditional markings right there. It's kind of hard to make out what it even says, though. The font is so small. The only thing I see that looks like it's been modified is our ground wire. Somebody probably took this out at one point in time, snapped it, and then they soldered it back together right there. But here's the backside of that pickup. It's kind of interesting and white. And notice how the pickup is a little bit concave right there. This is the first time I've seen one of these wide ones in person. But that pickup reads 7.61 k ohms within the circuit. And just for full disclosure here, this screw, this one, as well as this one, they're pretty much completely stripped out. They were hard to get out. And you can tell somebody made a new hole for that one. It's all crooked and kind of wonky. But they do appear to be the original screws, so I'll just leave them alone. But moving on from the mahogany body to the mahogany neck and Brazilian rosewood fretboard, you can definitely tell somebody's done some work on these frets. Especially up here, you can start seeing those tooling marks. So maybe they just worked on like the first 5 to get rid of some of the divots. But it's definitely a beautiful board. You do have a little bit of fret wear, especially right here. There's a divot right there. But the owner said he just recently had these things set up, so you should be good to go. But you've got 22 frets with what looks to be a 12-inch radius yet, and close to that 24 3/4 inch scale length. With a 1.68 inch nut width, that increases to 2.07 by the 12th. With a first fret neck depth of 0.9, and then that beefs up to 0.97 by the 12th. Face of the headstock here, unfortunately this is what I describe as limited adjustability left when you have some of the threads showing. It's not completely maxed out, you've got some room, the neck appears to be straight and be fine. This thing is from 1959, so I don't think that'll cause you any issues, but I do want you to know about that. But the truss rod cover, it's just a single ply black material. The thing to watch for on these type of tuners are bent ones. This one is very bent, you can tell. This one has a very slight bend. That's usually the one to go first. But this is the only one that's like super noticeable. A few of these are tight, other ones are looser than others. Most people will end up replacing these styles of tuners on these guys, but they'll do the job if you're not super picky on them. And unfortunately, another part that he was lied about was the tailpiece here. This is a Godo made in Japan part, so likely a 70s or 80s replacement for the original bridge. But at least the knobs appear to be original. That's usually the first thing to go for these guys when they change hands so often. Someone will take the knobs off and sell them for $200 for somebody who needs them for a higher end instrument. Moving on to the back here, here's where you can see it's just a big old slab of mahogany, not multi-pieces like the Melody Makers of today. So you can't see it on the top, but you can definitely see it back here. But this thing has been played and rode hard. You can see a lot of edge wear right here. But it does appear to still have the original strap buttons on it. I believe those were originally plastic like that, instead of the metal ones that you're used to seeing on the Bursts and other higher end Gibsons. So definitely well played, rode hard, put away wet. I mean, that's kind of the point of these Melody Makers, is just to really hammer out on them. And this neck has a lot of indentations on it as well, so if that bugs you, you might want to pass on this example. But it certainly has that vintage vibe to it. And this is just your standard brake line right here. It goes down there, swoops. Somebody just glued it, and honestly, you can't even feel it at all. So they likely had some sort of overspray on top of this, but I mean, I have zero worries about that headstock repair. Don't let that scare you. If anything, it just saved you a couple of $100. But these do appear to be the original 3-on-a-line style tuners, and here's our serial number, starting with 9 for 1959. But this one is a measly 6 pounds, 1.2 ounces. That's another reason why people like these things. They're so lightweight, and you can upgrade them. It's just a lot of fun. But I guess let's go ahead and check out that double cut Melody Maker here too. It's kind of a tough call on these guys. Do you polish and clean them up, or do you just leave them as is? I made the executive decision just to, dust them off. Other than that, I mean, you kind of want to leave that vintage patina alone, don't you? But this is what it looks like, all completely torn apart. So you can see those screw holes that I was talking about earlier. So you can just set this up with your wrap tail bridge just like that if you don't want to use the tremolo system. But since we have it, I'll go ahead and use it today. But here's what this bridge looks like. This is what they call the lightning bar because it looks like lightning coming down. Then I believe this is original. But remember, I haven't had tons of these, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But in there it says TPBR, as well as something going on in that one. And then I think these have been added after the fact, because I've never seen that before. Usually you adjust them from the outside here. But here's what that vibrato arm looks like. I believe they call this one the teaspoon. I believe most Firebirds have something like that. You can decide what length it is by how you screw it in. So you can have a short one, medium, or a long one like it's currently set up. That just secures to down here, and then this little part right there slides into the next part that we'll look at, which is right here. I mean, we've seen these on those modern day SG vibrato systems and things like that. It really has not changed that much since then. But besides just being secured by these 3 screws, you also have these little metal bits that kind of keep its height. So you can see over the years those have compressed and kind of chipped the finish a little bit. So if you do take that off, just remember you're going to have some finish chipping there. As far as the routes themselves, yep, that looks like a factory stock 2 pickup one, but my goodness, I don't know what happened to this cavity. It's like they got a bunch of wood shavings on it and then finish got over top of it. That just looks ugly. But that's another thing, just 5 years difference. Look how much this finish has changed. So it's more of a black border that kind of goes brownish and then yellow. Whereas in 59, it's like a brown color. There's no black on this, and then it just fades into that yellow color. I personally prefer the brown border. And if you ever take your Melody Maker apart and you see this gap, that's how it's supposed to be. I just forgot to point it out on that other one. And just for full disclosure, this screw and this screw, there's really nothing for him to secure in there. But as far as the pickups themselves, they're just little single coils. Notice just how thin these are. Go ahead and grab a caliper measurement here. It looks like 0.68. Whereas this one's 0.83. And it looks like this screw's also been replaced, and I think this one has also been replaced. It's kind of a larger screw with a domed head instead of flat like the rest of them. You might think it's crazy to have to disclose all these little things, but when it comes to true vintage stuff, you gotta disclose everything. As it looks like our switch tip is missing off of this one. Quick correction, I did find that switch tip in the case. He had removed it, so that was a good thing. And our pickup readings within the middle, 3.54, so that means these should be around 7-ish. Yeah, 7.15 in the bridge, and our neck position 7.02. The knobs appear to be original. They are golden reflector knobs. And all of this is looking factory stock to me as well. The one pot code that we can just barely read right there dates it to 1964. These other ones are all messy and you can't really tell much there. But it does look like our ground wire has been touched up. So that means somebody probably took this out and accidentally yanked it a little bit too much. I mean, that's very common because that's the only thing that connects the whole pickguard assembly to the guitar is the ground wire. This one's got a bunch of nicks and dings around the edges as well. I mean, this one was played, probably not quite as much as that other one though. But now, moving on to this neck. You can tell it's a little bit more awkward because you got a shelf on this side and a shelf on that side. And I think that's why I don't like these double cut Melody Makers. They just feel so beefy right here. But I believe this still has the Brazilian rosewood fretboard, still 22 frets, maintaining that 12-inch radius. And they're in a little bit better shape than that first one. You still have some minor divoting kind of in your cowboy chord area. I mean, it's a Melody Maker guitar. That's what most people are going to be playing. But check out all this nice wood grain within this board. That's a nice one. You always got to be careful because some people will take these guitars and take their Brazilian boards off of them to put them on higher end builds. But this one does have some significant fingernail wear right here within the board. So nobody would really want to steal this one anyways. But the nut has been replaced. I'm going to say I don't think they did the best job. I think the E string is like way too far over, but that's just my opinion. But we're looking at a 1.68 inch nut width, which then by the 12th fret increases to 2.07. First fret neck depth 0.82 and 1.02 by the 12th. Same truss rod cover on this one, and the headstock's pretty similar too, but our truss rod is in much better shape in this example. And this is kind of what I was talking about, how these tuners get all bent up. So this tuner's okay, this one's okay, but here's one of those really wonky ones. This is the one that usually goes first, so that's really crooked. This one's not too bad. Honestly, these tuners feel a lot better than that 59, so they're in pretty good shape except for this one. If you're really picky, you should probably get that nut redone. I mean, all these slots just look ridiculously large and not quite properly slotted. I mean, you can tell just how close that is to the edge. But as you go up the fretboard, it starts to go diagonally, so you still have enough room to do soloing and stuff like that. So if you're not too picky, you'll be fine with this just as is. But if you're really finicky, you're going to want to get that redone. Moving on to the back, this one is kind of equally as chewed up on the back with a bunch of buckle worming marks, but it's got that nice mahogany stain back here. Really nice wood grain underneath all that as well. So, I mean, both of these things were definitely played. You've got the original strap buttons right here. No breaks, cracks, or repairs to the heel on this one, thankfully. But still plenty of edge wear. I mean, it's a player's grade example. And a few nicks and dings along the side that you'll also see. This neck is in a little bit nicer of shape. I mean, you still have some nicks and dings, but nowhere near as much. But up here, I mean, as we were seeing earlier, I don't believe that's actually a crack or repair. It's just like a weird line within the wood grain that just appears to be darker. But underneath Blacklight, it almost looks like there might be a little bit of overspray, so that could be an excellent repair. It's kind of one of those ones that it's really too hard for me to call, but we'll take a look at that under Blacklight here in a minute. But here you can see our serial number, and here's our tuners. This one feels so significantly heavier. I thought for sure they would be vastly different weights, but they're about the same. 6 pounds, 2.1 ounces. I mean, this one feels body heavy because you have this big tremolo unit on it. And for the sake of being authentic today, we're going to be playing this through a Gibson Skylark GA5. This is a 5-watt tube amp from 1961. So, I mean, this is very similar to what it would have been played with back in the day. are my final thoughts on these Melody Makers? Are they the best bang for the buck? No, I mean, there's definitely better guitars out there, anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 bucks. I mean, sometimes these earlier ones with the fat pickups can go as much as $3,000 if they're in really clean shape. So these are mainly for people who want a little piece of the 50s or the 60s for not too much money. But at the same time, their name, Melody Maker, it really implies that you sit down with these things and make songs with them. And that's what they are fantastic for. These are just great to have around to sit and play in your bedroom. You don't even have to plug these things in. They're usually really resonant. But this double pickup version really surprised me. I love the neck pickup. That is fantastic. Bridge pickup, didn't do much for me, but I'm not much of a player anyways. It just sounded really thin and kind of spanky, but I mean, that's kind of what you want in a bridge pickup. But I'm all about that fat sound out of that neck pickup on this one. That is a nice little treat. This vibrato arm actually is pretty nice. It stays in tune, you know, for the most part. As much as you can expect it to, right? As long as you use it for its intended purpose and not trying to do dive bombs and stuff. I mean, you can do it, but you might have to tune it after that. If you like collecting guitars and you appreciate Gibson history, they're definitely worth having at least one or two of these. At least try one out, because they are fun little guys. But let's go ahead and check these guys out under Blacklight before we say goodbye today. We'll start off with our single cut because, well, let's face it, this is one that we actually need the Blacklight test on. But this shows you all the areas where the clear coat has been chipped off of this one. I mean, it's definitely a used guitar. Don't buy this if you think it's a mint condition collectible. That'd be really interesting to see one of these in mint condition because most of them got played just like this one. So we've got all those belt buckle worming and scratches. Here you can see where it's all chewed up on the neck. And eventually we get to that headstock repair. That just shows up black because it's been touched up. But other than that, you just have some of that edge wear we were talking about. Looks like maybe a little bit of lacquer wear right here. But let's go ahead and check out that double cut now. So this one, kind of a similar story, but a little bit less wear to the clear coat, I would say. You've still got some areas along the side though. We'll just continue looking along here just in case you are interested in purchasing one of these. But everything is good with the heel on this one. The back, it's got some worming, but not a lot that goes through the finish. Couple areas right here, and this one, it does not look like it's been repaired, but there is a slight difference in color, so it's possible that it's been oversprayed, and that's like a really excellent repair. My gut is saying it hasn't been repaired, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and advertise this one as a possible repair, just so everybody's on the same page on this one, because I don't want anybody to be disappointed if they get one of these. As far as cases go, this is what that double cut one comes in, just as you saw when I unboxed it. It's an old case, it's got some mildew or something going on there. I mean, it doesn't smell too bad, but I mean, it's not minty fresh either. That's just a wooden block right there. You're missing your lid, so you don't really have much of a compartment here. But, I mean, it does appear that all the clasps are present and functioning. Looks like you got about 3 of those. And just kind of has a little leather latch right there, and then another hinge right there. And then this is just like a modern day Gator style case. I don't actually see any branding on it. It does the job for the single cut, but it's not a perfect fit, so we'll have additional padding in here for you guys. Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed checking out these vintage Melody Makers, one from '64 and another one from the golden year of Gibson, 1959. If you're interested in being the next owner of either of these, again, they are on consignment, so you can check them out on my Reverb shop. I'll put a link in the description. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. Actually, there's been a slight change of plans on the single cut. He's decided to take this guitar back because it's just not worth selling it for the price that it's worth when it has a headstock repair. So just the double cut Melody Maker will be for sale in my Reverb shop.